At the beginning of the film, we are introduced to the main character. Jonathan works as an auditor and often stays late at the office because he is passionate about his work. The man observes as a cleaning lady locks herself in the toilet with her coworker. Jonathan sits in the empty office, already yawning from exhaustion. His office enters Wyatt. The man asks Jonathan what he is doing so late at work. Jonathan explains that he is preparing for a project the next day, adding that he likes numbers. Wyatt mentions that he's a lawyer and gets ready to leave, not wanting to disturb him. Jonathan asks him to stay a little longer since he is almost done. The men chat and decide to smoke a bit. Jonathan shares that he is unsatisfied with his life because he sees little beyond his desk. The man enjoys the pleasant conversation with Wyatt. Later, Jonathan goes to the subway and notices an attractive woman standing nearby with the letter S hanging on her bag. He even considers getting off at a different station to follow the stranger, but the people flow prevents him. At home, Jonathan falls wearily onto his bed and watches TV. A new day begins. At work, he notices Wyatt, who greets him with a friendly wave. Soon after, Wyatt approaches Jonathan and thanks him for the enjoyable conversation. Wyatt leaves, but then decides to invite his new friend to play tennis. The match ends with a win for Wyatt. He learns that Jonathan hasn't been very successful with women, having only been with 4 in his life. The man then invites Jonathan to his apartment. Wyatt suggests going to a club and asks his friend to change into something suitable and join him. Wyatt remarks that the limits in life are always set by the people themselves. Jonathan agrees and finds himself in a venue he could never have imagined going to. He has a great time with Wyatt, but the next day, he returns to his usual routine at the office. Jonathan has lunch with his new friend and learns that Wyatt will be flying to London for a couple of weeks. After finishing their meal, the men pick up their phones from the table and head back to the office. In the elevator, Jonathan receives a phone call from a strange number. He realizes that he has Wyatt's phone and his friend is already on his flight. At home, an unknown woman calls Jonathan and arranges a meeting at a hotel. Jonathan explains that he is not Wyatt, but the stranger doesn't seem to care. He heads to the hotel and soon meets a stunning woman. She invites Jonathan to her room and suggests spending the night together. Jonathan tries to explain that he is not Wyatt, but eventually gives in to the passionate moment. In the morning, Jonathan calls his friend and tells him about the encounter. Wyatt laughs good-naturedly upon hearing about his friend's romantic adventure. He also tells Jonathan that he is free to use his phone. That evening, the humble auditor dials another number from the phone, one that is listed only as a sequence of digits instead of a name. That night, Jonathan goes to a bar for another meeting. The woman realizes that Jonathan is new to their club. She explains that the initiator typically books and pays for the hotel room. Jonathan also learns about other rules, such as no rudeness, no leaving evidence, no talking about work, and no sharing names. After the meeting, Jonathan calls Wyatt to thank him for letting him use the phone. From then on, Jonathan spends his days working at the office and his evenings with stunning, beautiful strangers. One day, the auditor meets the same woman he once noticed on the subway. Jonathan reminds her of this and asks S not to undress so quickly. Additionally, when the young woman tries to leave, Jonathan offers her to stay and have a snack together. He chats with the beauty and tells her about his job, even though it's against the rules. He also tries to guess her name. Eventually, she falls asleep and promises him they'll meet again. In the morning, Jonathan finds a note from the young woman. He finally gets in touch with Wyatt, who promises to return in a week. The man warns Jonathan about S, reminding him that they met through the contact list, which means a serious relationship is unlikely. However, the man remains hopeful and stops going to other meetings. Soon, Jonathan receives a call from S. They have dinner together at a small Chinese restaurant. The man gives her a wind-up toy duck, and she gives him a red scarf. Jonathan can't believe this is his life. He kisses the beautiful woman and decides to book a hotel room for the night with her. Jonathan persistently asks the young woman to stay with him for the night, and she agrees, but says she wants to grab some ice first. Jonathan steps into the hallway, but when he returns, he sees red stains on the bed. Suddenly, he is struck on the head and loses consciousness. When he wakes up, he panics and runs to the front desk to call the police. The detectives find it suspicious that Jonathan doesn't know the woman's name or where she works. The hotel manager also claims that Jonathan arrived and checked in alone. Furthermore, no red stains were found in the room. The detectives are skeptical about Jonathan's story of a secret club for anonymous encounters. After returning home, Jonathan tries to reach Wyatt, but his attempts are futile. He goes to work and discovers that no one by that name works at his company. Additionally, the staff informs him that no one has been sent to London in the past few weeks. Panicking, Jonathan drives to the apartment where Wyatt had previously invited him. However, it turns out that an elderly woman has been living there for quite some time. This realization terrifies Jonathan. He understands that a strange liar, an imposter, had gained his trust. Some time passes, and Jonathan hears strange noises in his apartment. He steps out of the bathroom and finds Wyatt standing before him. Wyatt confirms that S is indeed special, then punches Jonathan. Wyatt informs him that he has a chance to save the young woman. He demands that Jonathan use his access to certain accounts to transfer money from them. Wyatt assures him that these are dirty funds that the bank keeps hidden for use on a rainy day. This means their disappearance won't be noticed soon. If Jonathan refuses, the man threatens to kill S and make it look like the auditor did it. Thereafter, Wyatt bids farewell and promises to keep an eye on everything. Soon after, the man receives a strange message from Tina, inviting him to meet. He goes to the hotel and interrogates the woman. Tina admits that she knew Wyatt from before and that she was the one who told him about the contact list. The young woman also reveals the man's real name, Jamie Getz. Returning home, Jonathan looks up this name online but finds nothing. He then decides on a small con. He calls the police and contacts the archives department. Jonathan pretends to be a detective and requests archived information on Jamie Getz. Soon, the man receives a shocking response via fax. The next day, he receives a call from Wyatt. Jonathan says he knows the man's real name and the charges he has uncovered against him. Wyatt is shaken. He can't understand how his dark past was discovered. Jonathan calmly tells him it doesn't matter and demands that the man immediately return S to him and drop his demands for the bank transfer. Wyatt commends the auditor for his resourcefulness before ending the call. The following day, Jonathan heads to work and receives another call. The man meets with Detective Russo, who informs him that a murdered woman fitting the description has been found. Jonathan identifies the body and realizes it's the woman he spent his first night with at the hotel. The detective reveals that she was strangled with a Kevlar containing rope. Jonathan remembers that Kevlar is found in his tennis racket, and Wyatt definitely knew about it since he asked about the racket after their first match. At home, Jonathan opens his tennis racket case and realizes it's empty. Furthermore, he finds photos of himself with the murdered woman in his pocket. The next morning, Jonathan nervously heads to work, unaware that a detective is tailing him. On the subway, Jonathan encounters his former friend again. Wyatt warns him that he will cut S into pieces if Jonathan doesn't fulfill his demands. Jonathan goes to the bank, where he has been invited as an auditor. Soon, he receives a confidential letter from Wyatt, explaining how to discreetly transfer money from a hidden account. Jonathan follows all the instructions, but he is interrupted by a bank employee. Annoyed, he tells the man that he dislikes being watched while working. Once alone, Jonathan completes the transaction. He receives a message from Wyatt praising him for his work. The man also informs him that S is waiting for him at his apartment. When Jonathan arrives home, he notices in a photo that there are no water stains on the wall from a broken pipe. However, Jonathan has been dealing with the leaking pipe for about 3 weeks. As he enters the apartment and switches on the light, the entire place blows up. Wyatt observes the incident from a neighboring building and then changes his appearance. On a plane, he introduces himself to a fellow passenger as Jonathan, a financial auditor. Wyatt arrives in Madrid, where he transferred the stolen dirty money to a bank under his alias. He heads to a hotel room where S is waiting for him. The woman looks at Wyatt and remarks that he strongly resembles Jonathan. Wyatt, however, is delighted that he is on the verge of securing a huge fortune. He promises to give the woman $1 million, but she seems far from pleased. The young woman becomes angry and starts crying upon learning that Wyatt eliminated the real Jonathan. Wyatt explains that he had no choice since Jonathan had discovered his true identity. Soon, Wyatt heads to the bank, but a problem arises. In addition to Jonathan's presence, the bank also requires Wyatt's physical presence to release the funds. Wyatt realizes that the auditor has outsmarted him. He cannot pose as both Wyatt and Jonathan at the same time. However, a solution is found. The auditor, disguised as Wyatt with forged documents, approaches the real Wyatt on the street and demands half the money. Wyatt agrees to the deal. Fortunately, everything goes smoothly at the bank, and each man walks out with a suitcase containing $10 million. Outside, Jonathan explains that he figured out the photo was fake because there were no water stains on the wall. He also asks Wyatt where the young woman is and offers to give up half the money in exchange for her location. Wyatt suggests discussing it in a quieter place, but instead pulls out a weapon. Jonathan braces himself to die, but Wyatt is severely injured by the woman. Jonathan leaves Wyatt and the money behind and rushes after the young woman. She yells at him, saying that he knows nothing about her, and drives off in a taxi. However, a few days later, the woman finds Jonathan on the streets of Madrid. This is the end of the film. Thank you all for watching this video to the end. Give this video a like. Write in the comments what you think about this film, and see you in new videos.